Welcome to Justin Johnston Show. I'm Justin Johnston. I'm a commercial real estate agent in Utah, Salt Lake, Utah County. I mainly sell, lease, industrial, and office. And in that process, over the last several years, we're always trying to find new ground for these industrial projects. In that process of finding the ground, I've sold quite a bit of land. And I've interacted with a lot of farmers, and there's lots of different farming operations. A lot of the main farming around here, a lot of alfalfa, kind of the money crop. It's what I would call industrial farming. Now, I would say that because the reason I'm giving basically the trailer of what to expect, I want next week to tune in to a really smart guy that is doing regenerative farming. Now, it's a term that it's been around for a long time, regenerative farming, but there is a process of what maybe the older, classic, what I would say colonial farmer, maybe European, but it's what they did do in the early days of this country when we were starting out in the farming process, but it was being reinvented, and and depending on where you were at, the soils that you had and things like that, it's a process, regenerative farming. Now, what is that? I'll get into that in just a little bit. We sit in an area where this gentleman that's going to be coming in next week, Vernon Stout is his name, and he's actually got a couple different projects. He's a really interesting guy. We might end up doing a couple shows with him. He's very patriotic. He has a fascination with World War II equipment and the sacrifice that those guys made, and so he's had a chance to acquire half tracks. He has the smaller tank that was the engines were made from Cadillac to make that work. It was used quite widely throughout the European theater, but he owns one of those and is refurbishing it right now. So he will be on the show next week. So I wanted to give heads up with that. Now, his farm is located in what we call here Lakeshore, which is kind of the outskirts of Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork has been a pro-industry community, pro-business, and it sits right at the mouth of Spanish Fork Canyon at the south end of Utah County, just maybe 5 miles south of Provo. And in that area, Highway 6 diverts off of Spanish Fork Canyon. You would take Highway 6 to go out towards Moab, obviously to Mexican Hat, Valley of the Gods if you want to go that way, or you're going to catch I-70 and go out towards Denver. So it's a very major canyon. Unfortunately, there's wrecks there. Always a horrendous wreck. It seems like somebody falls asleep or goes head-on with a diesel. There's never a good story or outcome, or very rarely. But the ambulances are always going up and down that canyon. It's a very busy canyon. And so in this area, industrial projects, there's actually an inland port, which is for a whole other separate thing we can discuss. But Spanish Fork's booming right now. Now, this is even on the further outskirts. There's really no utilities and stuff out there, but there's some farming, right? Now, this soil that is in this area of Spanish Fork, Lakeshore area is very rich, dense, naturally beautiful soil. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of the term terra preta. Terra preta is black earth, right? It's a soil that they call Amazonian soil, Amazonian black soil. It's in question, though I think from what I understand is it's pretty much been proven because of what's in there is some charcoal, soil base, and then small fragments of pottery has been found. Where is this at? Of course, it's in the Amazon. It's in Brazil. And a soil that was manufactured, for the lack of a better term. It's amazing, rich soil that just keeps regenerating. That if you can get this soil and you can add it to your garden at home, it will just keep enhancing the soil, anything that it's brought to. And so that's, there was a question about, oh, hey, if you slash and burn, you're going to end up eliminating this rainforest area, maybe a crop or two. But where is this pointing to? It's pointing to a group of people, Amazonians, who knows? Was it the Incas? Who knows? Other than the people that live there manufactured a soil that has some of the richest soil with the most diverse plant. It's basically the pharmaceutical. Almost every breakthrough has come from plants and remedies, and unfortunately we lost so many of these because of decimating those people down there, either through active decimation of war and submission, or through sickness, smallpox, whatever, right? I mean, it was maybe one of the most tragic events that we've actually had, a genocide. It eliminated a lot of people. Where am I going with this? It is a process that's already had a solution, right? So we've got global warming, climate change, and we are looking at all these lawsuits coming out of Monsanto for the pesticides and the weed killers and all these things that we do with industrial farming. There's an industrial farm way of doing it, and it is mass production, planting one crop for so many years. We can use fertilizers and things like that to come back and try to regenerate the soil. Well, there was another way. There's another way, and there's several people that have actually been doing this throughout the country. And my guest, Vernon Stout, is going to be discussing this next week. So I'm giving a precursor. What is regenerative farming? Maybe you can look into it. Maybe you can see. But firsthand, he's going to talk about this, and I find it fascinating. It's really interesting. It is a different way of doing things, and it would not work on industrial farming. And essentially, the health of the soil, so that you're not using those additional chemicals or additives. There's a word that I learned, carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration, I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is taking the carbon dioxide that would be, instead of tilling up the ground and opening that up and having that exposed with, and lose that factor and have it exposed to the atmosphere, it's keeping it, not tilling the ground so much, having a process of actually cleaning the environment up. So here's a natural way. There's no fight of whether or not the electric cars or power plants, or if it's coal-based power plants versus nuclear and wind-driven power sources. Renewable is what they're calling those, which, whatever that means, renewable. Here's a way that's about as basic as you can get, and it is very cool in the way that you go about it. And of course, he's going to explain all of that stuff, but I did want to whet your appetite a little bit. If you're into this, I find it very, very interesting. I've seen, it was actually on a Joe Rogan, where they had rain that was running off the properties, and it was a regenerative farm and a traditional, or the new modern industrial farming. The one that was coming off that was like this algae-rich, heavily fertilized. I mean, it just looked like wastewater, right? That was coming out of some mining camp or heavy industrial, and of course it was farming. And the other water that was coming off this regenerative farm that was coming out of a pipe was like clean. It was clean. Nothing's in it, right? I mean, there's going to be natural things that may be found in water or the property, but it's not to the level that this other way that we've embraced. Now, we can produce a hell of a lot of food. We've been able to make it so that here in America, for sure, we don't worry about starvation. Now, anybody that's starving, there's some other reasons for that, but we've solved that problem. Now, how do we solve these other problems, right? And so I brought up the black earth, the terra preta, for a good example, because we don't know exactly how to do that. Now, supposedly, there's people down there that can't, there's some old wise people that know how to do that, and they do continue to manufacture it. We've not been able to duplicate it. We don't understand that process, whatever goes into it 100%, but there's some people that know. Hopefully we can harvest that information out. We have a black soil here in Spanish Fork. He's growing it, and Vernon's going to show us how he moves his crops in 1 acres, and he also includes trees on the property so that it's actually having trees right there that's capturing some of that carbon, turning it to photosynthesis, green, and creating new clean oxygen. And, well, I guess air, I should say, altogether. Replenishing our system the way that God intended it and the way as natural as you can get. This is a process where you bring, as you go ahead of planting in these 1 acre increments, I think is what he's going to do. I'm sure there's larger areas, but you would put cows to pasture. And the cows, of course, eat, and they're pooping, and they're creating their own fertilizer on that ground. There's you move the cows to the next acre that you're going to plant, and then the hogs or pigs will go in there. And then you may have after that, so that it's in stages to where you would have some sheep, goats, and then I think it's that point you can actually have chickens and ducks that will go out there, geese, whatever, domesticated, which they're eating the little microbe, the beetles, the stuff that comes out of, to where you don't have to, the whole, if you get this, you don't have to go through now with the pesticides, right? Now you've got a natural, the chickens who are going to be laying eggs, and the ducks in that process go through, and of course they're eating the bugs, and without any infestation of something coming around there. If there was some other things like the Mormon cricket or whatever, which we have from time to time, that will take over and just shred crops, you've got on site right there as it's getting ready to come up with now duck and chicken shit being put on there to fertilize it again. Then you come in, and then that's when you plant. That's when you put the seeds out, and they rotate the crops. So they've got it down to a science. It's very cool, and we're going to hear firsthand from a guy that's doing it, and he's going to, at least tell us how he's planning to do it, and then I think we'll have him back for another show. But going back, just because I bounced around here, one, I wanted to whet your appetite for that. Hopefully you can tune in and watch that show, or come back or make it. But at the end of the day, I wanted to point out, sometimes we don't have to look for a new remedy. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes I think if we just stopped and looked at what is around us, what historically has happened, go to Brazil, find out how much pottery does it take to make this with charcoal that's brought in. I mean, it's more than just a coloring thing. I mean, we're talking about a nutrient-rich, biodegradable soil that is just prime for seeds to grow anything. One of the interesting things about that, I know, is the Brazilian, I think, walnut. That's not a native tree to that area. Now, thank goodness they're smart people. We have smart people that can figure all that stuff out. They can see what's native, what was the invasive plants, but that was brought in to where they could live on additional source of food for nuts and things like that. This problem has been solved, not just the farming problem, but obviously if you do it in a way it actually can regenerate, capture the CO2, and put it back into the earth, concentrate it there, and work it out in a natural process. I think we just need to ask some more questions and not be so prideful that we don't want to learn, or we think that we're smarter. We think that our advancement in technology and all these other things have brought us to a higher level of learning that we can't learn from maybe what was happening 10, 20,000 years ago, right? This earth has been around for a long time. It is regenerated. It's recycled. I personally believe that there's been amazing intellectual, far advanced civilizations than what we're aware of. Now we're finding a little bit more of this out, but maybe even more so than we are. Maybe they didn't have the little techie devices and things like that, but they sure understood this world, how to make it thrive, and also how to build. We've not been able to duplicate many of these things. Hopefully we can learn, and I think regenerative farming is one of those things that we're going to re-implement. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, like what we're saying, and if you don't agree and you think we need to do some things to change, or you want to give us a compliment as well, we'll take those. Just leave a message below, and we'll get back to you. We will always respond to anything that we have here. Thank you very much. Have a great week.